Welcome to paradise. No, not the five-star, coconut-in-a-glass kind of paradise you see in travel ads. I mean real paradise. The Maldives, a scattered chain of emerald green islands floating in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Long before overwater villas and honeymoon photo shoots, these islands had their own secrets, and some of them were dark. Tonight we're going back many, many centuries, a time when the ocean ruled everything, a time when people whispered more than they shouted, and a time when brides didn't always get a happily ever after. Yeah, welcome to medieval Maldives. If you've ever imagined this place as endless blue water, golden beaches, and cute crabs doing their thing on the sand, you're not wrong. It was beautiful. Coconut palms leaned over the shore like they were just as lazy as the people lying under them. Waves tapped on the coral reefs like a quiet heartbeat. Nights were soft, the kind of nights where the moon looked like it had nowhere else to be. But behind that calm face, the islands kept rituals. Old ones, forbidden ones, the kind of stories grandmothers whispered after dark, just to make kids behave. Now, let's set the scene. These islands weren't big. Some were so small you could walk across in a few minutes and end up right where you started. Every island had its own tight-knit community. Everyone knew everyone. If someone sneezed, the whole village probably knew about it by sunset. But they also knew their traditions. And in these waters, tradition wasn't just about eating fish curry or dancing under the stars. Tradition could decide life or death, especially if you were a bride. Long before the Maldives became a Muslim sultanate, long before fancy ships started bringing traders and spices, the people here lived close to the sea. So close, they believed the sea had a soul, and sometimes the sea wasn't in a good mood. Fishermen said it had spirits living beneath the waves, some friendly, some not so much. There was this one spirit, or demon, depending on who you asked, that was feared the most. His name was whispered, not shouted. Ranamari. This wasn't just a spooky bedtime monster. Ranamari was said to demand a bride, a real one. And people believed that if the island didn't offer what he wanted, the sea would rise, storms would tear through huts, fish would vanish, and boats would never return. Scary, right? But here's the thing. This wasn't just legend floating in the breeze. It shaped how people lived. It shaped weddings. Now, imagine a young woman in a tiny island village. She's been chosen to be a bride. Everyone smiles at her, congratulates her, gives her flowers and sweets. It looks like a celebration. But behind every hug, there's a quiet fear. Because in the back of their minds, they all know some brides don't walk into a home. Some walk into a ritual. The Maldives at that time wasn't run by just one big ruler. At first, every atoll, every cluster of islands had local chiefs and headmen. Later on, a sultan would rule the whole chain, but power often depended on who could keep the sea happy. And the way they believed they could do that was through rituals. Not everyone saw these rituals. Most people just heard about them. They happened at night, away from the songs and dances. There were no wedding photographers here, no honeymoon selfies, just the sound of the ocean and a temple by the shore. And this is where the story begins. This wasn't a world with electricity or speedboats. At night, the islands turned dark, real dark. The only light came from coconut oil lamps and the moon, if it decided to show up. People sat around in woven huts, whispering legends. Kids peeked from behind their mothers, pretending they weren't scared. Old women stirred pots of fish curry while talking about brides who vanished. Some said the chosen brides went into the sea and never came back. Some said they married the spirit beneath the waves. Some said it was just a story to keep people from questioning those in power. Yeah, it's funny how stories sometimes help people in charge stay in charge. The ocean wasn't just a big body of water for these people. It was like a god,
a wall, a door. It fed them, trapped them, and scared them. When it was calm, they sang songs. When it raged, they trembled. And right in the middle of this delicate balance between sea and shore stood the bride. She wasn't a warrior, she wasn't a queen, just a girl, a daughter of the island, wrapped in silk and flowers, walking into a future no one dared to speak about out loud. The Maldives had traders coming from Arabia, India, East Africa, even China. They brought silk, spices, and new stories. But inside the islands, old beliefs still held tight like tangled fishing nets. People could pray in mosques, but when storms hit, they still whispered to the sea. And when the ocean whispered back, well, that's where things got serious. What made these forbidden rites truly frightening was how normal they seemed to everyone back then. It wasn't just some random event, it was expected. And if the bride was chosen, her family often accepted it with lowered heads. To outsiders, it might look cruel. To them, it was survival. This chapter isn't about the blood or the ritual yet. Not yet. This is just the calm before the tide pulls everything under. Right now, we're standing on the sand. The moon is full. The ocean is breathing slowly. And somewhere in a small hut, a young woman is sitting with flowers in her hair, listening to the waves outside. She doesn't know what fate waits at the shore. She just knows tomorrow she's getting married. Or at least, that's what they told her. That night, the village sleeps. The stars spill across the black sky like tiny lanterns. Crabs crawl along the beach, completely unaware of human drama. Coconut trees sway like they're just as gossipy as the people lying under them. But under all this quiet beauty is a secret, one that the island has carried for centuries, a forbidden rite, waiting. And when the tide turns tomorrow, the bride's life will change forever. The sun rises slow in the Maldives, not like it does in movies. No dramatic trumpet sounds, no golden eagle flying overhead. Here, the light just kind of creeps in, like a shy cat. Palm trees shake off the night breeze. Fishermen yawn, stretch their backs, and wander toward their boats. Women sweep sand off doorsteps they just swept yesterday, because sand is a stubborn little thing. And inside a small hut on a quiet island, a young woman wakes up. She's the bride, the chosen one. Her name isn't written in any book. History doesn't remember her face. But today, her island does. Everyone knows this is her day. Or at least that's what they told her.
Now, medieval Maldivian weddings weren't like modern weddings with floral arches and buffet tables. No glitter, no microphones, no awkward dancing uncles. It was much simpler, and somehow much heavier. A wedding back then was more than two people promising to annoy each other for the rest of their lives. It was a family deal, a village promise, a spiritual handshake with forces they believed were older than the ocean itself. The bride sits still, wrapped in soft cotton fabric. A cousin combs her hair with a wooden comb polished smooth by years of use. Another girl hums a tune, a wedding song that everyone knows. It's gentle, like a wave touching sand. But her heart, it's not humming, it's pounding. She's been told what's going to happen, at least the pretty version of it. She'll walk, she'll smile, she'll sit next to the groom, she'll wear flowers in her hair, and everyone will eat until they can't move. But she also knows the whispers, because every island has whispers. They say some brides aren't just brides. Some brides are chosen not by the groom, but by the sea. A woman enters the hut, the aunt, the one everyone listens to because she has that face that says, "I know everything." She fixes the bride's hair like she's polishing a rare pearl. "You must walk slowly," the aunt says. "Don't trip. Even if you do, pretend you didn't."
Classic aunt advice. Then comes the part where they paint her hands with natural dye, a reddish tint from local plants. It's not bright like henna in South Asia, but a softer stain, almost earthy. They believe it keeps away bad spirits. Now, the wedding outfit in medieval Maldives wasn't a white dress. Nope. It was a long, wrapped cloth, usually hand-woven, often with a little shimmer from imported threads brought by traders. The brides looked elegant, but also practical, because the islands were hot and humid, and no one wants to faint in the middle of their wedding. Once she's dressed, they place a crown of flowers on her head, white, pink, and green. The scent is fresh, a little too strong, but it's meant to make her look like someone the sea itself would envy. Then the drum beat outside changes. It's slow, but steady. Boom, boom, boom. That's the signal. The whole island now knows the bride is ready. She steps outside. The sunlight hits her face. Children stare with wide eyes. Old men nod. Teenagers giggle, because weddings always bring gossip. And as she walks through the sand path, petals are thrown at her feet. But she notices something else, too. The smiles are polite, but the eyes of some villagers are heavy, like they're carrying a secret no one wants to say out loud. Let's talk about weddings in medieval Maldives for a second. This wasn't just a private thing between two people. The island participated. The local chief approved the match. The religious leader gave blessings. The entire village gathered. And there was this unspoken layer, an old belief that sometimes brides were not just brides, they were offerings. Back then, power didn't sit in parliaments or fancy palaces. It sat between the temple, the ocean, and the chief's house. If the sea had been calm, if fish were plenty, if storms had stayed away, everyone felt safe. But if the sea got angry, if tides rose too high, if boats disappeared, someone always asked the same question: who will calm the ocean? And somehow, it always ended with a young woman in white flowers. A soft sigh, almost like the ocean breathing. As she walks to the center of the village, she passes the groom's house. He's waiting outside, looking awkward, like every groom in history. He's dressed in clean white cloth, trying to look confident, but honestly just sweating. He's young too. Maybe he believes the stories, maybe he doesn't, but even he looks unsure. The two don't speak much. That's normal here. Weddings are quiet, not loud. The island does the talking for them. A group of drummers beats a slow rhythm, their hands slapping the stretched skin of their drums. The crowd follows behind, and like that, the wedding walk begins. But here's the thing. She's not walking toward a home. Not yet. First, she must go through the ritual walk, a path that leads down to the beach. The island has one special spot, a wide, flat area near the water, marked with white stones. Everyone knows this is where weddings are blessed. But some old people whisper, it used to be something else. Long ago, before new faiths came, a place where the old gods were fed. She steps onto the sand. The tide is pulling in slowly, like it's curious. Seabirds watch from above. Fishermen stand at the edge, not talking. The priestess, yes, they still had them back then, stands near the water. Her clothes are darker, heavier. Her hair is gray, but her eyes are sharp. She doesn't need to. She raises her hand. The drums stop. Silence stretches over the island like a net. The bride feels the sand cold under her toes. A small chill runs up her spine, though the sun is hot. Then the priestess speaks a prayer. It's old, very old. Even the villagers don't fully understand all the words anymore, but they know what it means. It's a call to the sea, a call to keep the island safe. The bride looks out at the water. For a second, it feels like the ocean is listening. Then the crowd claps softly. The drums start again, and the ritual walk is over. But deep down, she knows this isn't the end. This is only the beginning of something bigger. Tonight, when the moon rises, she won't just be a bride. She'll be part of something the island whispers about, but never says loud. She looks at the waves. The waves look back. Yeah, the sea doesn't talk, but tonight it might. The crowd leads her back toward the village, where food waits, laughter tries to break the tension, and drums pretend everything's normal. But everyone knows when the tide rises again, the real ceremony begins. For now, she smiles. For now, she walks among friends. But the path ahead is tied to the ocean's will. If you were born in the Maldives 1,000 years ago, your life would have been simple. You'd wake up to the smell of salt in the air, step outside your little thatched hut, stretch like a sea turtle, and say, "Well, time to survive another day." Because everything came down to one thing: the sea. The sea fed you, moved you, scared you, and sometimes decided if you lived or not. The people didn't just live beside it. They lived under its rules. And believe me, the sea had rules. Not written on paper, not carved in stone, but in the hearts and habits of everyone. Break those rules, and bad things happened. Boats vanished, crops failed, storms showed up uninvited. It's kind of like that one neighbor you don't want to annoy. You don't know what they'll do if you make noise after 10 p.m., but you'd rather not find out. Now, before we get too deep into the superstition stuff, let's talk about real laws. The Maldives during the medieval period wasn't just a bunch of random islands floating without order. Nope, they had a system. Each atoll had its own chief or headman called an island leader who made sure things didn't fall apart. Above them, there was a sultan, the big boss of all the islands. His palace wasn't made of gold or marble. Think more along the lines of coral stone walls, wooden beams, and soft rugs made from palm leaves. Pretty humble, but for those days, it was royal enough.
The Sultan's job? Keep the peace, collect taxes, of course, and make sure no one upset the balance between land and sea. Because if the ocean got angry, guess who everyone blamed? Yep, the Sultan. Poor guy. That's why rulers back then worked hand in hand with priests and holy women, not just for religion, but to make sure the spirit stayed happy. See, the people didn't separate politics, faith, and superstition. To them, everything was mixed together like a big pot of fish curry. You couldn't taste one without the other. You had religious law, brought in by travelers, preachers, and scholars who introduced Islam around the 12th century. But before that, there were island laws, old customs that no one dared to erase. Even after the Maldives officially became a Muslim sultanate, those old whispers from before about sea spirits, temple offerings, and forbidden rites didn't just vanish overnight. They hung around, quietly. It's like when you delete an app, but it's still there in the background, secretly eating your battery. So while people prayed in mosques by day, some still left small offerings by the ocean at night, just in case. Let's zoom in a bit on what life looked like for ordinary islanders. Most people were fishermen. You spent half your life out on a boat, chasing tuna or reef fish, singing songs to stay awake. Women dried the catch, prepared meals, and managed the home. Kids ran barefoot everywhere, pretending to be dolphins. Life was simple, but everything had its place and its rules.
There were rules for fishing, rules for planting coconuts, rules for lighting fires after sunset, and of course, rules for marriage. Marriages weren't just love stories, they were contracts with nature. The community believed that when two people came together, it could either bless or curse the island. A happy couple meant calm seas. A bad match, you guessed it, angry waves. Imagine being blamed for bad fishing season just because your marriage wasn't working out. That's why weddings weren't just personal, they were public business. The island's elders, the priestess, even the chief would make sure the match had cosmic approval. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not every wedding was equal. Some were between villagers, simple and joyful. But others involved families of influence, people close to the sultan, temple priests, or traders with connections. Those weddings were different. They carried more responsibility, more pressure, and sometimes more secrets. Because hidden within those rituals were forbidden rites. Old ceremonies that blended pre-Islamic island magic with new religious customs. And these rites often involved the bride. You see, women were seen as bridges between the human world and the unseen, not in a romantic way, more like spiritual antennas. Their purity, beauty, and ability to bring life made them symbols of connection. So when the sea got restless, when waves pounded too hard or storms refused to stop, the elders whispered, "Maybe the sea needs a bride." And suddenly, a real woman from a real family found herself chosen. The Sultan's court never officially said it out loud. They couldn't. Religion forbade such things. But island traditions worked in shadows. At night, when most people slept, the palace lights burned low, and quiet meetings took place. Priestesses were called in. Ritual books, older than anyone alive, were unrolled. A bride's name would be chosen. And in the morning, everyone would act like it was just another wedding. The island followed both the law of the Sultan and the law of the sea. Two systems always pretending to get along, but secretly fighting for control. The Sultan had soldiers. The sea had storms. Guess which one usually won? And for the villagers, it was simple. If obeying old customs meant the sea stayed calm and the fish kept biting, then so be it. They'd follow the rules, no questions asked. Even if it meant sacrificing someone's happiness. Even if it meant fear wrapped inside a wedding dress. Now, you might be thinking, didn't anyone ever speak up? Didn't anyone say, hey, maybe the ocean doesn't actually need a human bride? Well, maybe someone did. But on small islands, speaking up was dangerous. When everyone's survival depends on superstition, reason sounds like rebellion. So, they stayed quiet. And that's how, even under royal law, old island traditions survived, like ghost footprints in the sand, fading but never gone. Our bride doesn't know all these details, of course. She just knows her wedding feels off. She sees the strange respect people give her, the way elders bow slightly, the way kids are told not to stare. She feels it, the weight of something invisible pressing down on her shoulders. Tonight, when the tide rises, she'll begin to understand what these laws really mean. They're not written in books. They're written in waves. The sun is gone now. The island is quiet. And when the island gets quiet like this, it's never just quiet. The night in the Maldives doesn't feel like normal night. It breathes. Palm trees sway like they're whispering secrets to each other. Crickets chirp like background music that never stops. The ocean moves in slow, deep breaths. And tonight, the island is holding its breath too. Because it's not just a wedding night. It's the night of the rite. Our bride sits inside a small wooden hut near the beach. She's dressed in silk, white, soft and light, the kind of fabric that moves even when the air doesn't. Her flower crown has started to wilt a little. So has her smile. She doesn't know the full story yet. No one does until it's too late. But she can feel it. The air is too heavy, the silence too thick. Outside, most of the villagers pretend to sleep. But no one really sleeps on a night like this. Not even the chickens. There are whispers floating through the island like smoke. They're preparing. The priestess is at the temple. The tide is right. And somewhere near the shore, a group of elders stands around a torch. This is not the public wedding. That already happened in the daylight, with drummers and flowers and everyone pretending this is just a normal celebration. This part, the real part, happens at night. And it's not for everyone. Only a few people are allowed to witness it. The priestess, a few chosen elders, the bride, and, well, the sea. Let's talk about what this ritual really is. People called it the forbidden rite, but of course, no one used that name out loud. They gave it sweet little names like the blessing of the tide or the night offering. But everyone knew what it meant. It was old. Older than the Sultan. Older than Islam reaching the islands. Older than any story told at the village fire. According to legend, the sea had once demanded a bride every now and then, to keep its rage away. If the offering was not made, storms would tear the islands apart. A bit dramatic, right? But when you live on a tiny island in the middle of the ocean, everything the sea does feels personal. So, the island followed the rule. Not because they liked it, but because they were scared.
The priestess would walk toward the temple near the shore. It wasn't some huge stone building. Think more like an old, simple structure made from coral blocks and coconut wood. It smelled like salt and smoke because the ocean was only a few steps away. The bride would be led down a narrow sandy path, barefoot, the cold grains sticking to her feet. Two women walked with her on each side. They didn't talk, they just walked. Every step sounded too loud. The wind carried the sound of the waves pulling and pushing like the sea itself was impatient. As she reached the temple, torches flickered in the breeze. Shadows of palm leaves danced on the sand like ghosts playing tricks. The priestess stood waiting. She wore dark clothes, a thick necklace made of shells and coral. Her hair was silver gray, her eyes sharp as the moonlight. People feared her a little, not because she was cruel, but because she was the keeper of things no one wanted to name. She raised her hand, and the low drumbeat stopped. The priestess said a prayer. It wasn't Arabic. It wasn't from any holy book. It was older, a mix of chants and whispers passed down through generations. Only the priestess and a few old women knew all the words. The villagers didn't question it. You don't question something that's been around longer than your grandfather's grandfather. Then came the offering. The bride was given a clay bowl filled with fragrant water, flower petals, and small polished stones. She was told to pour it into the sea. That was supposed to be the peace gift for the spirit beneath the waves.
A polite little, "Hey, please don't drown us this year." She walked to the water's edge. The sand was cold. The waves kissed her toes, then pulled away like a shy monster testing its prey. The crowd didn't speak. Even the wind seemed to stop. She tipped the bowl forward. The water and petals slid into the dark sea. And that was it. Or at least, that's what everyone pretended. Because what followed wasn't written in any village songs. When the offering hit the water, the priestess began another chant. Louder, stronger, it echoed through the island like the sound of an approaching storm. The bride was made to stand still, hands at her sides. The ocean's tide started to rise slowly. Not a storm, not yet. Just a careful, creeping tide that touched the hem of her silk dress. Some say this was the moment the spirit decided. The priestess threw a handful of white powder into the air. It burned in the torchlight and fell like silver ash. The crowd took a step back. No one wanted to stand between the bride and the sea. Then came the silence. You know the kind of silence that's louder than sound? That. The sea waited. The island waited. Even the drums stayed quiet. This was the heart of the forbidden rite, the invisible agreement. If the tide rose quickly and swallowed the offering, it meant the spirit accepted the bride as protection for the island. If the water pulled back, well, that wasn't good news. The villagers held their breath. Our bride stared at the horizon. The water shimmered under the moonlight. For a moment, it felt like the whole ocean was looking right at her. And then the tide surged forward. Just a little, enough to touch her knees. The priestess smiled, a small, tired smile that said, "Well, the sea wants you." And just like that, the deal was made. The villagers didn't cheer, they didn't clap. This wasn't a happy ending, it was survival. She was now officially the sea's bride. Of course, tomorrow, they'll still call it a wedding. There'll still be songs, food, and laughter, but everyone knows it's different. The priestess lowers her head, the torches burn low, the drum beats return, soft again, like a heartbeat that's slowing down. The bride is led back to the hut. Her dress is wet, her feet are cold, and her heart is heavier than the sea. Behind her, the ocean rolls gently, like it's satisfied. For now. And somewhere out there in the darkness, the legend of Ranamari stirs like a shadow under the water. This is the forbidden rite, the one no one speaks of in the daylight. Soft waves fade, night insects chirping. Tomorrow, the island will pretend everything is normal, but tonight, the bride belongs to the sea. Midnight has come. The villagers are behind their doors, pretending to sleep. The moon is watching from the sky like it knows something no one else will say out loud. And inside the small wooden hut near the beach, the bride sits alone. Well, not completely alone. There's the sea. And in the Maldives, the sea counts as company. Her dress is still damp from the tide. It clings to her ankles, cold and heavy. The flower crown is gone now, blown away by the wind or stolen by some curious crab. Honestly, no one knows. But that's not what's making her heart pound. It's the silence, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full. Like something is standing just outside the door, breathing slowly. This is the part no one talks about. The priests, the drummers, the dancers, they all disappear after the rite. Whatever happens between the bride and the sea is between them. Romantic, huh? Except not really. She remembers the stories the older women whispered while braiding her hair days ago. Stories about the bride of the night, about how the sea chooses a girl and then takes something in return. No one says what exactly, but everyone agrees on one thing: she'll never be the same. The wind moves through the cracks in the wooden wall, making a low sound, almost like someone humming. The torch outside is burned out. It's dark now, just the pale light of the moon shining through the gaps. She hugs her knees, trying to stay warm. The island might look like paradise during the day, but at night, paradise has sharp teeth. Suddenly, a sound, a soft knock. Not the "can I come in" kind, more like a wave tapping on the door, reminding her who's really in charge here. Her breath catches in her throat. She tells herself it's just the wind, or a coconut falling somewhere, or maybe a bored fish slapping against the shore. Yes, desperate people say anything to calm themselves. But the knock comes again, louder. Outside, the waves are getting restless. They rise and fall with a rhythm that sounds too much like a heartbeat. And then she hears it, a soft whisper. Not in any language she knows, not even in words she can clearly understand, but it's real, low, smooth, like the sea itself is talking to her. "The sea doesn't speak," she whispers back to herself. "The sea doesn't speak." But tonight, maybe it does. The wooden door creaks, not open, just enough to let the sound of the ocean slip inside like fog. The air is wet and cold now, smelling of salt and something else, something ancient. She stands up slowly, 1 foot at a time, like she's moving through honey. Her bare feet press against the sand-covered floor. Outside, the waves have reached the steps of the hut. The water is glowing faintly in the moonlight. Not bright, just a soft shimmer, like silver threads being pulled toward her. And then she sees it. Out on the water, right where the tide turns black, there's a shape. Not quite a person, not quite a shadow either, just something. It moves with the waves but doesn't sink. Its outline flickers, like it's made of smoke and water at the same time. People call it many names. Some say it's Ranamari, the sea demon. Some say it's the guardian of the tide. But the brides,
They just call it him. The air tightens. Her pulse is drumming in her ears now. Every step she takes toward the door feels like it belongs to someone else. She doesn't even notice the water crawling up to her ankles. This is the moment the island fears, and yet repeats, over and over. The figure in the water tilts its head, like it's curious, like it's waiting. She steps out of the hut. The sand is soft but cold. The tide curls around her feet like fingers, not pulling, not yet, just touching, testing. Her silk dress floats around her legs as she moves forward. There's no one to stop her. No one ever does. That's the rule. Once the rite is accepted, the bride must meet the sea. Behind her, the village sleeps with its eyes shut tight. That's how people survive things they don't want to face. They pretend not to see. As she reaches the water's edge, the figure grows clearer. It has the shape of a man, tall and still, but it's made of water. The moonlight passes through it like glass. Its eyes, or where eyes should be, glow faintly, like the reflection of stars on a calm lagoon. No one who saw Ranamari up close ever talked about it afterward. Some say they forgot. Others say they were too scared to speak. She stands there, heart racing, but strangely calm,
like part of her already knew this moment would come. The voice comes again, not a human voice, more like the sound of waves curling against a reef, shaped into meaning. Come. She doesn't answer, but her body moves, slowly, step after step into the water. The sea rises around her knees, then her waist. The silk sticks to her skin. The figure remains where it is, patient, like it has all the time in the world, which, honestly, it probably does. And when the water reaches her chest, something strange happens. It gets warm. Not warm like a bath, warm like being wrapped in something alive. She looks up. The stars are clear tonight. The moon is huge. And for a second she thinks, this isn't so bad. But then, just as suddenly, the warmth slips away, and the current around her feet changes direction, fast, strong, like hands closing around her ankles. She gasps, but the sound disappears into the wind. The figure reaches out an arm made of water. It touches her wrist, not rough, not soft, just there. And then she feels it. Not pain, not fear. Something older. Like a thread being pulled from inside her chest, like the sea is taking not her body, but something else. Her breath gets shallow, her heart pounds, but she doesn't scream. No one ever screams. The figure leans closer, the world tilts, the stars blur, and then silence. Soft pause, only waves now. When the tide pulls back, she's still standing, her dress soaked, her hair tangled, her eyes wide, but something is gone. What? No one knows exactly. Some say it's the soul, others say it's the promise of freedom. But the bride is no longer just a bride. She's the sea's woman now. She walks back slowly, like sleepwalking. The hut behind her looks the same, but the world has shifted. The island will look at her differently tomorrow, with respect, with fear, with distance. Inside, she curls up on the floor. The water drips from her dress, forming a small pool under her. Her body is on the island, but part of her, still out there, in the water. The waves calm down. The figure fades into the night like it was never there. And the moon, still watching, doesn't say a word. Morning has come. The sky is blushing pink and gold, like someone gently painted it with watercolors. The sea looks calm, innocent even, like it wasn't whispering dark promises just a few hours ago. But this island, it remembers. Our bride wakes up on the wooden floor of the hut. Her hair is still damp, her silk dress wrinkled, her skin sticky with salt. She blinks at the light pushing through the cracks in the wall. For a few seconds, she doesn't move. Her body feels heavy, not tired, just different. And then she realizes. The island outside is already awake. The villagers move like they always do. Women carry baskets, men fix their boats, kids chase each other in the sand. It's paradise again, but beneath all the smiles and greetings, there's that quiet tension. The kind people pretend isn't there. And this morning, it's all because of her. She pushes the door open and steps out. The sun hits her eyes. It's warm, almost too warm. The sand is already hot on her bare feet, and that's when she feels it. Every pair of eyes. The villagers aren't staring directly. No, they're more clever than that. They pretend to look past her, like they're busy with coconuts or fishing nets or the sky. But she can feel their attention, like tiny, invisible hands pressing against her skin. This is the secret everyone knows, but no one ever says. The rite is forbidden to talk about, officially. It's a private spiritual blessing. But everyone knows what happened last night, and everyone knows she is no longer just the girl from the village. She's something else now. The old women are the boldest. They watch her with half-lidded eyes, lips pressed tight. Some nod slightly, not in kindness, but in recognition. They've seen this before. A few steps away, kids are giggling and whispering. They don't understand fully, but they know enough to be curious. One of them even tiptoes closer, like she's about to touch a sacred statue. The bride's breath catches. She doesn't feel like a bride anymore. She feels like a warning. And then there's the elder, a man with a long beard, skin tanned from decades under the sun, and a stare sharp as a fishhook. He doesn't smile, he doesn't nod, he just looks. She lowers her eyes, because that's what every sea bride does the morning after. The priestess appears soon after. She walks slowly, like she's gliding, her coral necklace rattling softly with every step. She's not dressed in ceremonial clothes anymore, just a simple dark wrap. But even without the rituals, she has that look. The look of someone who holds the island's oldest, heaviest stories in her hands. The villagers part for her like waves splitting around a rock. No one ever stands in her way. She stops in front of the bride. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The priestess studies her, like she's looking through skin and bones and straight into what's been taken. And then, in a low voice, she says, "It's done." No congratulations, no blessings, just those two words. Because this isn't a celebration. This is a contract. The villagers slowly return to their daily business, but not really. They steal glances, they whisper, they give her space, like she's become untouchable. She walks forward, and people move aside, without even realizing it. Not out of respect, out of quiet fear. Yeah, imagine being treated like a walking storm warning. Not exactly the honeymoon vibe. She walks toward the shore, drawn by something she doesn't fully understand. The sea is calm, its surface smooth and shining like a mirror. It looks harmless, but she knows better now. Her mind flashes back to the figure she saw last night, the way the tide wrapped around her legs like hands, the warmth, the cold, the way something inside her shifted and never came back. And yet, she doesn't remember everything. It's blurry, like a dream that's been half erased by morning, but the feeling remains, like the sea left fingerprints on her soul. Behind her, the priestess speaks again. "You'll carry the tide now." She turns. What does that mean? The priestess doesn't explain. She just looks at the horizon.
That's the thing about these kinds of secrets. Everyone knows them, but no one says them out loud. It's like trying to name a storm. It makes it too real. The priestess walks away, leaving her standing at the edge of the water. A few fishermen bow their heads slightly as they pass her. Not a full bow, more like a small nod to something dangerous, like sailors nodding to a volcano. The bride tries to smile at a young woman she knows, someone she grew up with, but the woman doesn't smile back. She looks away, pretending to fix her scarf. And in that moment, the bride understands. She's still here, but she doesn't belong here anymore. The sun climbs higher. The heat makes the air shimmer. Life goes on. Boats set out to sea, children splash in shallow water, women laugh in groups. The island runs on a rhythm older than any of them. But beneath that rhythm is a second beat, a quiet, secret beat that belongs to the sea. The bride walks down the sand, where the water gently touches her toes. The tide pulls, just a little, not enough to drag her in, just enough to remind her we're connected now. And strangely, she doesn't fight it.
Part of her feels at home out here. Part of her wants to step deeper. She hears whispers behind her. Two young women, maybe future brides, watching, curious. One of them says softly, "She met him." The other shushes her. "Don't say it." And that's how the island keeps the secret alive. Not in books, not in songs, but in the way people don't speak. She turns to face the village one last time. The huts, the palm trees, the familiar faces, everything looks the same, but it isn't. She is now both part of this world and outside it. A living reminder of a deal older than memory. As the day moves on, the village settles into its usual rhythm. But from this moment forward, every time she walks through the sand, people will step aside. Every time the wind howls, mothers will whisper prayers. And every time a new wedding is announced, brides will look at her with quiet, fearful eyes. Because she carries the sea's mark, and no one ever really escapes it. The secret isn't written down. It doesn't have a name, but it's there, in every grain of sand, every wave that touches the shore, every sideways glance. And the bride? She's now the keeper of the unspoken. The sun is sitting high above the palm trees now. The sky is that bright blue that almost hurts your eyes. Everything looks perfect, like a postcard. But if you've ever lived on an island, you know, paradise has layers. And just below the calm surface of the ocean, something moves. Something old. Our bride is standing near the water again. Same place as before, but it feels different now. Yesterday, the ocean was a border. Today it feels like home. A strange, cold kind of home that whispers to her when no one else is listening. She dips her toes into the shallow water. The tide curls around them, warm and gentle, almost playful, like it recognizes her. Behind her, the village hums with daily life. Fishermen fixing nets, kids arguing about who gets the biggest coconut, women laughing as they clean fish. But around her, everything feels quieter, as if the ocean is trying to say, "Forget them, listen to me." The thing is, she does hear it. Not words, not exactly, more like a faint hum, a low, steady rhythm coming from under the waves, like a heartbeat deep in the belly of the sea. The priestess once told her, if you ever hear the ocean sing back, don't answer. Well, too late for that warning. Yeah, that's the thing about forbidden rites. People never give you the manual afterward. She crouches down, letting the water soak the hem of her dress. The humming grows a little louder, and then she hears it, a faint splash out beyond the reef. She squints. The water glitters too brightly to see clearly. But for a second, just a second, she sees a shadow slide beneath the surface. Long, smooth, moving like smoke underwater. It's not a fish, it's not a turtle. She knows what it is. Runamari, the sea's shadow, the one the old songs never finished telling. Her heart does this weird thing, half fear, half pull, like something inside her recognizes it. She whispers, "Why me?" The ocean answers with another soft wave. Not words, not exactly, just the weight of a presence. The villagers say that once you're chosen, the sea doesn't stop calling. It wants you close. It wants to keep you. She stands, brushing the sand from her hands, and steps deeper into the water. It reaches her knees now, then her thighs. She doesn't even notice how far she's walked. She tilts her head. The humming beneath the surface changes. It's no longer a rhythm, it's a pattern, like a song, slow, ancient, beautiful, and just a little terrifying. If she closes her eyes, she can almost see it. An entire world down there. A city carved in coral, glowing faintly like fireflies in the dark.
figures moving slowly through the water. A crown made of black shells, a throne sitting at the bottom of the reef. Or maybe it's just her imagination. Either way, it feels real. She hears footsteps behind her, sand crunching. When she turns, it's one of the young women from the village, the same one who whispered yesterday. She's standing on the shore, eyes wide, hands wringing nervously. "Come back," she calls softly. The bride glances down. She hadn't noticed. The water is already up to her waist, swirling around her like silk. For a moment, she wants to step back, to go home, pretend to be the old her. But then, from beneath the waves, something brushes against her leg. She freezes. Not like a fish brushing past. Softer. Intentional. She looks down and sees nothing, just clear blue water. But the humming grows louder, stronger. It vibrates through her bones now. The girl on the shore whispers again, louder this time. "Come back." But she doesn't move. Because deep down, she knows something the others don't. She's not just hearing the ocean anymore. She's understanding it. It's not just calling her name. It's calling her home. The girl on the shore runs to fetch someone, probably the priestess. But the bride doesn't hear footsteps anymore. Just the waves, just the hum. And then she sees it. Not far ahead, just past where the water turns dark. There's the figure again, Runamari. The shape is clearer in the daytime. It's tall, taller than any man, but smooth, like the sea shaped itself into a body. Its edges blur and twist like smoke underwater. Its eyes, if you can call them that, glow faintly like pale moonlight trapped in a shell. It doesn't move closer. It doesn't have to. She feels its pull like a rope around her chest. This is how the legend says it begins. The sea gives, then it calls. Then it takes. She stands still. Her breath is shallow. Her heart beats to the same rhythm as the hum. The priestess arrives a few minutes later. No one else dares come close. She doesn't shout. She doesn't panic. She just steps carefully into the water, the tide lapping at her ankles.
The bride finally looks back. The village is behind her. The sea is in front. And for a moment, she doesn't know where she belongs. The priestess lifts her coral necklace and begins to whisper an old prayer. Not the loud chant from the wedding night. This one is softer, older, like she's talking directly to the tide. The humming shifts. It doesn't vanish, but it weakens, like someone turning the volume down. The figure under the water fades a little, still there but distant. The bride takes a shaky breath and steps back toward the shore. The water lets her go, but not completely. She can feel it drag slightly at her dress, like it's saying, "I'll see you again." When she reaches the sand, the young woman runs to her, wrapping her in a shawl. The priestess just watches the horizon. She looks tired, not like someone who's surprised, but like someone who's seen this happen many times. She finally says, "It begins early with you." The bride frowns. What does? The pull. The priestess looks at the ocean with narrowed eyes. Some brides hear it years later, some after the first storm. But you? The sea doesn't like to wait. The bride doesn't answer. She just stares at the water. Because deep down, she knows this isn't over. This isn't even the middle. The humming still echoes faintly in her ears like a lullaby she can't unhear. And out there, beyond the reef, the shadow waits. Patient, ancient, smiling with no face at all. The day is ending. The sun has melted into a warm orange glow, sliding behind the line where the sky kisses the sea. Everything looks peaceful, beautiful. The kind of scene people in faraway lands might paint and hang on a wall. But on this island, sunsets are a quiet reminder the sea doesn't sleep.
Our bride sits near the water, wrapped in a shawl that still smells faintly of salt. She hasn't said much since the afternoon, since the pull started. The tide creeps in and out, slow and steady, as if breathing around her. She runs her fingers through the sand, letting the grains slip between them like tiny golden drops. It should feel calming, but it doesn't. Not tonight. Because somewhere under those calm waves, something is waiting. The sound of soft footsteps breaks the silence. She turns her head. The priestess is walking toward her again. The old woman moves slowly but deliberately, her dark wrap fluttering around her ankles, coral beads glinting in the last light of day. She doesn't sit down right away. She just stands there looking at the horizon, like someone watching an old enemy who never really leaves. "You felt it," she says simply. The bride doesn't answer right away. She looks at the water. It's like a song. She whispers finally, "But it's inside me now." The priestess lets out a long, low sigh. Yes, that's how it starts. There's no surprise in her voice, no panic, just the steady tone of someone who's seen too many brides stand exactly where this one stands now. The priestess finally sits beside her, knees creaking softly. The air smells like coconut smoke and seaweed. The sky is turning purple, one star at a time. You should know, the sea doesn't choose by accident. It doesn't look at beauty or kindness or strength. It looks at cracks, places in the soul where the tide can slip through. The bride frowns. What does that mean? The old woman chuckles softly, not the cheerful kind of laugh, but the kind you give when the truth is too heavy. "It means," she says, "you were always going to hear it, even before the rite. You were already part of its story." Soft pause, distant gull cries. The bride wraps the shawl tighter around herself. The wind is picking up, cool and salty. "Can I stop it?" she asks quietly. The priestess looks at her, not unkindly. "No one stops the sea." The words hang in the air like a warning. "No one stops the sea." The bride repeats under her breath. The priestess leans forward, scooping a handful of wet sand. She lets it fall, slowly, grain by grain, watching the wind carry some of it away. But you can learn to live with it. Some brides, they disappear early. Some fight and break. And some, she says softly, some learn to walk with the tide without drowning. The bride looks at her sharply. "And you? What about you?" The priestess smiles, thin and tired. "I was a bride too. Long ago." That silence after those words, it's loud. She never told anyone that. No one ever talks about their night with the sea. It's like an unspoken rule carved into the bones of the island. The bride stares at her. "Then how are you still here?" The priestess looks at the water. "Because I didn't run, and I didn't let it own me completely. I listened, and I learned how to speak back." She touches the coral necklace around her neck. "This isn't just decoration. It's a promise, a shield, a reminder." The bride leans closer. "A shield from what?" The old woman's eyes flick to the water. "From forgetting who I am." The tide slides closer, touching their feet. The priestess doesn't flinch. She just presses her palm against the wet sand, as if grounding herself. "You'll hear its voice every night," she says quietly. "Sometimes soft, sometimes like a storm. It'll tell you things you can't repeat. It'll offer you peace, but at a price. It always has a price." "What kind of price?" the bride whispers. The priestess looks at her with eyes sharp as coral. "Yourself." The bride swallows. The shawl suddenly feels too small, too thin. "Is there no way out?"
The old woman doesn't say yes or no, she simply shakes her head slowly. The sea doesn't give back what it takes, but it also doesn't like to be ignored. She reaches into a small pouch hanging from her belt and pulls out a tiny carved shell. It's smooth and white with strange patterns etched into it. She presses it into the bride's hand. "Keep this close," she says. "When it calls too loudly, hold it. It won't silence the ocean, but it will help you hear yourself." The bride looks down at the shell. It's warm in her palm, like it's been sitting in sunlight all day. Or maybe, like it has its own heartbeat. The priestess stands up again. "Tomorrow, the tide will rise higher. It always does after the first night. Don't walk alone." The bride nods, clutching the shell tightly. Before she leaves, the priestess turns and says, almost gently, "You are not just its bride, you are also its mirror. Remember that." The bride doesn't fully understand, not yet, but something in her chest shifts at those words, like a spark trying to light in the dark. The priestess walks back toward the village, her figure melting into the shadows between the huts. The drums from the far side of the island begin softly, a wedding song for someone else maybe. Life moves on. It always does. But the bride stays where she is, staring at the horizon. The first stars are out now, scattered across the sky like silver fish. The ocean looks calm again, but she knows better. She closes her hand around the shell. The tide touches her toes, retreating and returning, over and over, like a hand that never really lets go. And somewhere beneath those dark waves, she can feel him watching, waiting, smiling in that quiet, terrifying way only something eternal can. The island wakes up before the sun.
The sky is still wrapped in a heavy blue when the first rooster decides it's his personal duty to scream at the universe. Somewhere, a coconut falls from a tree, and near the shore, the tide is creeping in like it has a secret to tell. The bride wakes up to that sound. Not the rooster, she's gotten used to him, but the tide. The waves sound louder today, deeper, like a drum beat under the island. She blinks away sleep and sits up on her woven mat. Her hair is messy, the kind of messy that tells you dreams didn't go down easy last night. She reaches for the little shell the priestess gave her. It's still in her hand. She didn't let go all night. Outside, the village is already moving. Women are lighting fires, kids are chasing each other with more energy than should be legal this early, and men are checking the boats tied to the shore. But there's something else in the air this morning. An uneasiness, a hush underneath all the noise, like everyone knows the tide is a little different today. The bride steps outside. The sand is cool under her feet. The ocean stretches out in front of her, shining faintly in the pale blue light. The line of the tide is much higher than yesterday, much closer to the huts. One of the women, busy tying a cloth to a line, glances at her and whispers to another. It's not the usual chatter. It's the kind of whisper people use when something isn't right, but they're pretending is fine. She ignores it and walks toward the water. Her heart beats a little faster with every step. The tide rolls in, brushing against her ankles, and right then, she hears it. That soft voice again, that humming, somewhere between music and breath. It's not coming from outside, it's inside. She grips the shell. "Not now," she whispers. But the sea doesn't exactly care about personal boundaries. The water swirls around her feet, and for a split second, she swears she sees something moving just below the surface, a shadow that doesn't belong to any fish she knows. Long, fluid, watching. "Morning walk?" The sudden voice behind him makes a jump. It's Riham, one of the young men from the village. He grins, like he just caught her sneaking cookies. She forces a small smile. "Just clearing my head." He nods toward the rising tide. "Good luck with that. The ocean's louder than usual. She's hungry." The bride raises an eyebrow. "Hungry?"
He chuckles, scratching the back of his neck. Yeah, that's what my grandfather says when the sea rises early. He says it's not just water, it's a living thing, always asking for something. The bride's stomach twists at those words. And if we don't give it? Riham shrugs. Then it takes. He says it casually, like someone talking about the weather, but there's a weight behind it, a truth everyone on this island knows too well. The tide splashes a little higher against their shins now. Riham takes a step back. Better not stand too close. It likes the ones who stay. The bride watches him walk away, whistling like it's just another day. She knows better. The priestess's voice echoes in her head. Tomorrow, the tide will rise higher. Yeah, she wasn't joking. As the sun climbs up, the island gets louder. Drums start beating near the temple, coconut smoke fills the air, and the villagers prepare offerings. You can almost feel the nervous excitement vibrating through everything. This isn't a regular day. It's the second night of the wedding. That's when, according to their stories, the sea gets serious. The bride is led to the temple again. She's wearing a white wrap, a fresh garland of frangipani flowers, and that same shawl from the first night. Someone has braided her hair with shells and coral beads. She looks like a painting, but inside, she's a storm in a coconut cup. The priestess is waiting at the temple steps. She nods slowly. It's coming. The bride swallows. I can feel it. The priestess places her hand on her shoulder. Listen carefully tonight. It's not just calling, it's choosing. They enter the temple. It smells of burning herbs, old wood, and the sea. Candles flicker against carvings of waves and strange figures that look a little too human and a little too not. Everyone in the village is outside. No one wants to be inside after sunset. Not but the bride and the priestess. As the sky darkens again, the ocean begins to roar. Not like a storm, but like a creature waking up. The bride stands at the temple door staring at the black water. It's closer now. So close it almost kisses the edge of the stairs. The moon floats above like a silver coin dropped in the sky. The priestess hands her a bowl filled with petals and oil. Walk to the water, she says. The bride shakes her head. Alone? The priestess nods. Yes, it needs to see you. Needs to see her. Yeah, that's not terrifying at all. But she steps down anyway, one step at a time. The cool water wraps around her feet again, is higher, stronger. She hears it calling louder now. Words she doesn't know but somehow understands. Come. She whispers back, almost without meaning to. I'm here. A soft wave rushes around her knees, swirling like hands. The petals in the bowl float away, carried into the dark. The villagers watching from far back start humming, a low, steady sound. It's not for her, it's for the sea. The priestess stands still, her face unreadable. This is the moment she told her about. The water rises to her waist. She clutches the shell. The sound in her head grows sharper. It's like someone whispering secrets straight into her bones. Then she sees it. Out in the water, past the line where the moonlight hits, something is moving. Slow. Tall. Too tall. Her breath catches. It's not a wave. It's a shape, a figure half hidden by the sea, long hair floating around it like black smoke in water, eyes like faint, glowing embers, watching her, waiting. The bride doesn't scream. Not because she's brave, more because screaming would make it real. The figure tilts its head slowly, like it recognizes her. The water tugs at her legs, one step forward, then another. She fights the pull, clutching the shell tight. Behind her, the priestess calls softly, "Remember who you are." The figure disappears beneath the water. The humming stops, just for a heartbeat. Then a whisper, not in the air, not from anyone around, but inside her head. Tomorrow. The water falls back, almost like a bow. The tide retreats, leaving the petals behind. The villagers exhale all at once. The priestess nods. It spoke. The bride shivers. She doesn't fully understand what happened, but she knows something just changed. Tomorrow is not going to be quiet. She looks down at the shell in her hand. It's glowing faintly, or maybe that's just the moonlight. Either way, the seed just made a promise, or a threat. Same thing, really. Midnight has a strange way of making everything louder. The crickets sound like they formed a full orchestra. The palm trees whisper secrets to each other. And the sea, the sea hums like it's got a plan. The bride sits in the small hut near the temple, staring at the doorway. She hasn't slept, not a wink, not after what the sea said. Tomorrow. That one word keeps looping in her head like a broken song. The priestess's shell is still warm in her palm. The glow from the moon sneaks through the cracks in the walls, drawing thin silver lines on the floor. Outside, the village is unnaturally quiet. No wedding songs, no laughter, just the sea. Always the sea. The door creaks. The priestess enters, wrapped in her dark shawl, hair braided with old coral beads. She doesn't need to speak. Her face says everything. It's time. The bride swallows hard. What happens tonight?
The priestess doesn't answer directly. She moves to the corner of the hut and opens a carved wooden chest. From inside, she takes out a long white cloth, a bridal shroud. Light as sea foam, smooth like it's been worn 1,000 times before. And maybe it has. Put this on, the priestess says softly. The bride touches the cloth. Why does it feel cold? The priestess gives a dry chuckle. Because no bride wears it and comes back the same. Not exactly comforting, but the bride slips it on anyway. It clings to her like a second skin, soft and unsettling. The priestess hands her a small oil lamp and a bowl filled with crushed petals. The same kind she used yesterday, only now they smell stronger, almost sweet, but not in a nice way. Walk with the light. Don't run, don't speak unless it speaks first, the priestess instructs. And whatever happens, remember this: your voice belongs to you, not to it. The bride nods slowly. She feels her heartbeat pounding in her ears. She steps out of the hut. Soft ocean sound grows louder. The village is empty. Everyone's behind their doors, pretending to sleep. But they're listening, every ear tuned to the waves. She walks toward the temple. Her bare feet sink softly into the cool sand. The tide has crept so close now, it almost licks the temple steps. It's waiting. The moon sits high and round, bathing everything in silver light. The ocean sparkles in a way that's too beautiful for something so dangerous. The priestess follows behind her, silent as a shadow. They stop at the edge of the temple. The bride's breath comes out in shaky puffs. The air smells of salt and night flowers. It's almost lovely, if you ignore the fact that she's walking towards something that whispered inside her skull. Step forward, the priestess says. The bride steps down the stairs and into the water. Cold, immediate. It wraps around her ankles like fingers. Then it pulls gently, like it knows her name. She doesn't fight it. Not yet. The chanting starts, low, from somewhere unseen. It's not the villagers. It's older, deeper, like the island itself is singing. The tide reaches her knees, then her waist. The petals scatter around her, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The lamp flickers in her hand, then goes out. Just like that. Perfect. Just what she needed. The sea is black ahead. Not empty, just too full of something she can't see. Then, movement. The water shifts. Ripples spread outward, and slowly, something rises from the dark. First, the outline, then the shape.
A tall figure steps out of the water, but steps might not even be the right word. It moves like it doesn't follow rules, like gravity is just a suggestion. The bride freezes. Long hair floats around the figure's head like seaweed in a current. Its skin looks like it was carved from the night itself, shimmering, wet, smooth. Its eyes glow faintly in the dark, two tiny lanterns. This isn't a story. This is real. The figure tilts its head. Then it smiles. And that smile isn't comforting. It's the kind of smile that says, "I've been waiting for you." Soft heartbeat sound. The priestess doesn't speak. She stands at the temple steps, holding her coral beads tightly. The sea creature, or spirit, or god, or whatever this thing is, raises its hand, and the water rises with it. A soft current wraps around the bride's legs, pulling her forward. Not harshly, lovingly, which is somehow worse. The bride's breath catches. Her fingers clutch the shell. She hears it whisper again, "Come." Her feet move on their own. One step. Two. The creature is closer now. She can see its face. Not fully human. Not fully anything else either. It's beautiful in a way that makes your bones ache. "Bride," it says softly. Not through its mouth, through her mind. The vibration vibrates inside her chest. She wants to run, she wants to scream, but all that comes out is a shaky breath. "Do you fear me?" the voice asks. She swallows. Yes. It laughs, soft, like the sound of waves curling over sand. Good. The fearful ones last the longest. Behind her, the priestess murmurs a prayer. The figure's head tilts slightly at the sound, like it can hear every syllable. The bride clutches the shell tighter. She remembers the warning. Don't let it own your voice. "I'm not yours," she whispers. Her voice shakes, but it's there. The water stills. Just for a second. The creature looks at her more closely. Its smile fades into something curious, almost like it didn't expect her to say that. "You will learn," it whispers back. "You all do." The tide rises higher, brushing against her chest now. She shivers, not from cold, but from the weight of its presence. "Tomorrow night," it says softly, like a promise, "you will walk deeper. You will belong." And just like that, it vanishes, slipping back into the water like smoke into air. 1 second it's there, the next, only waves. The water falls back to its usual level, leaving the bride shaking, soaked, breathless. The priestess rushes forward, holding her up. "You spoke back," she whispers, half in shock, half in awe. "I had to." The priestess presses a hand against her heart. "Good. Then you still have a chance." They walk back toward the hut, dripping wet. The village remains silent, but everyone inside knows something happened. The tide never rises like that without a reason. Inside the hut, the bride sits down hard, the shell still glowing faintly in her hand. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow she walks deeper. And maybe she doesn't come back. The island is quiet again. Too quiet. Not the kind of peaceful quiet. More like the kind that feels like everyone's holding their breath. The bride sits cross-legged on the floor of the hut, still wearing the damp bridal cloth from last night. The shell in her hand has stopped glowing, but it's warm, like a heartbeat buried inside it. She's tired, but sleep refuses to come. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees that face again, that smile, that thing in the water. And worse, she hears the voice. "Tomorrow you will walk deeper." No pressure, right? Outside, the sky is just beginning to lighten, a faint gray before sunrise. Usually, the village would be full of chatter by now. People lighting fires, kids yelling, boats creaking. But today, silence. The priestess enters quietly, like someone who's done this too many times. Her face is calm, but her eyes are sharp. She sits opposite the bride, resting a bundle of old scrolls wrapped in palm leaves on the floor. "You saw its true face," she says softly. The bride nods slowly. "It wasn't human." "No, it hasn't been for a very long time." She unties the scrolls, revealing drawings, old, faded ink on rough paper, curved lines, symbols, strange figures rising from the water, holding the hands of women dressed in white. It's like looking at a mirror of her own night. "What is it?" she asks.
The priestess traces the figure with a shaky finger. "They call it the Bodamus," she whispers. "The sea groom, the one who takes what the tide chooses." The bride frowns. Takes? The old woman nods. Every generation, one bride, one night, one soul bound to the deep. That's the deal our ancestors made. The bride stares at her. A deal? The priestess sighs heavily. "Long ago, when this island was still wild and half of it underwater, our people lived in fear of the sea. Storms destroyed the huts, waves dragged boats away, crops drowned. One night, the Bodamas rose from the water and made a promise. 'Give me one bride each year, and I will spare the rest.' She looks up at the bride, and they agreed. The bride feels her stomach drop. They just gave people away? They gave brides, the priestess corrects softly, always newlyweds, always someone who stood at the edge of two lives. The island survived, but the sea never forgot the promise. The wind outside picks up, rattling the bamboo walls. The ocean hums in the background, steady, patient. The bride clenches her fists around the shell. And what happens to them, to the brides? The priestess looks away. For the first time, she doesn't answer quickly. Some are taken, some become part of the water, and some stay, changed. Changed how? She meets the bride's eyes again. They hear the ocean forever. They live half in this world and half beneath the waves. They become the guardians of the tide. The bride shakes her head. "I don't want to become anyone's guardian." The priestess almost smiles. "No one ever does." Soft pause, distant gull cry. The bride looks at the drawings again. In one of them, the figure of the Bodamas isn't just pulling the bride into the sea, it's crowning her with coral. She looks almost peaceful. That image unsettles her more than anything. Can it be stopped, this ritual? The priestess lets out a long breath. Some have tried, none succeeded. The bride leans forward, but what if— "Listen," the priestess interrupts gently. "The sea doesn't fight like we do. It doesn't care about right or wrong. It only takes what it believes is owed." The bride's jaw tightens. "But what if I don't let it take me?" The old woman studies her closely. "Then the island pays." That silence after the words? Heavy, thicker than the humid air. The bride looks at her hands. She's just one girl, one bride, one soul against an entire island's history, a history built on a bargain no one remembers making. But something deep in her chest, something stubborn, refuses to bend. "I'm not going to vanish quietly." The priestess doesn't look surprised. Maybe she expected this. She reaches into the scroll bundle again and pulls out something wrapped in cloth. Inside is a coral pendant, shaped like a spiral. It hums faintly when the air touches it.
This belonged to the first bride who ever came back, the priestess says softly. She didn't escape, but she returned. The bride's eyes widen. How? She made her own deal, the priestess whispers. She learned the sea's true name. Names are power. Even the ocean bows to its own name. The bride's voice lowers. And you know this name? The priestess gives a small, grim smile. If I did, I wouldn't still be standing on this shore. Great, no pressure at all. But then the old woman leans closer. You can listen for it. It's in the hum. The waves don't just speak, they sing. Every bride has a chance to hear it, if she's brave enough. The bride closes her fingers around the coral pendant, is warm, warmer than the shell, like it remembers. I listen, she says quietly. The priestess nods. Then tonight, you go deeper, not just into the water, but into its song. The bride swallows. And if I fail? The old woman doesn't answer. She doesn't have to. Soft sound of the tide growing stronger. Later that evening, the villagers begin their quiet preparations. They don't celebrate, not anymore. This night isn't a wedding night. It's a night of silence, of holding their breath. The bride walks to the edge of the shore with the shell in one hand and the coral pendant in the other. The tide is already high, the waves licking the temple steps like they've been waiting for her all day. The priestess stops at the top of the stairs. This is where I can't follow, she says softly. Beyond this point, it's only you and the sea. The bride nods. Her heart hammers, but her steps don't falter. She walks down into the water, letting it climb over her ankles, then her knees. The humming starts again, louder this time. It wraps around her like a living thing. The coral pendant vibrates faintly. The shell warms in her palm. All right, she whispers to the darkness. Show me. The water responds. The tide rises fast, swirling around her waist. She hears the song more clearly now. Beneath the rhythm of the waves, there are whispers. Not in a language she knows, but it doesn't matter. She understands. The voice is calling, pulling, tempting. She closes her eyes and listens harder, past the pool, past the fear, beneath the voice. And there, buried in the song, she hears something else. A single name, a shape of a word too old for air. Her eyes snap open. The sea shimmers in front of her. The Bodemas is there again, rising from the water like it never left. You're listening, it whispers, almost pleased. Good. But she doesn't answer, not yet. This time, she has a secret too. The Bodema stands, or floats really, before her. It doesn't walk like a person. It moves like the tide, sliding, gliding. The shape is still half shadow, half water. Its smile is the kind that doesn't mean kindness. And the bride? She stands ankle deep in the warm, dark sea, her white dress clinging to her legs, her hair a wet mess, clutching a glowing shell in one hand and the coral pendant in the other. Not exactly the dream honeymoon she imagined. The Bodemas tilts its head. You've heard me, it says. The voice is like waves over sharp rocks, calm but dangerous. The bride nods slowly. I've heard something. Not something, it replies. Me. Of course, because monsters love being dramatic. The water rises gently around her knees, as if the tide itself is leaning in to listen. The night air hums with a low, almost musical vibration. It's not wind, it's not waves, it's the ocean talking. She grips the coral pendant tighter, Her heart's going wild, like a drum at a village wedding. "I know your name," she whispers. For the first time, the Bodemus freezes. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. Its smile fades. "Then speak it," it hisses softly. "If you dare." She takes a breath, and then another. The sound she heard in the water wasn't a name made for human tongues. It was a vibration, a pulse, a song. But the ocean doesn't care about perfect pronunciation. It cares about courage. She lets the sound slip from her lips, half word, half breath. It's strange and heavy. It rolls off her tongue like a secret pulled from the bottom of the sea. The ocean shudders. Waves pull back a little, like something has startled the water itself. The Bodemus takes a step or a glide backward, its face flickering like a torch about to go out. You shouldn't know that," it whispers, voice shaking now. Let out a shaky laugh. "Well, maybe you shouldn't whisper your name into the ears of brides you plan to drown." Its eyes narrow, glowing faintly, like bioluminescent coral. "You don't understand what you've done." "Oh, trust me, I barely understand anything right now." The Bodemus's shape starts to shift. The watery silhouette wavers like it's losing its grip. Around them, the night grows louder, not from people, from the sea itself. A deep, echoing groan rolls through the water, old.
But she doesn't stop. "You made a deal with my people," she says softly, "but nobody ever asked me." The Bodemus looks almost offended. "The deal was made long before your name was carved." "Yeah," she shrugs, "that's kind of the problem." A soft, tense pause. Waves crash gently. "You think knowing my name gives you power?" the Bodemus asks, its voice growing louder, darker. "You think the ocean kneels to a single word?" She lifts the coral pendant. Not a single word, but maybe a single choice. For centuries, the ritual has been the same. One bride, one night, one sacrifice. No one ever came back. No one ever questioned it out loud. Until now. The water surges forward suddenly, wrapping around her waist. It's strong, like invisible hands trying to pull her in. The Bodemus leans close, its face inches from hers. "You can join me," it whispers. "Like the others, the sea will remember your name too." She looks right into its glowing eyes. "Yeah, no thanks. I like breathing air." She whispers the name again. This time, louder. The water recoils like it's been slapped. The pendant in her hand burns hot. Light ripples out of it, soft, golden, warm. It spreads over the tide like spilled fire. The Bodemus stumbles backward. Its shape is unraveling. The song in the water becomes a roar. Waves crash against the shore, but they can't cross the glowing line now forming around her. "You can't undo this," it roars. "The sea always gets what it's owed." The bride raises her chin. "Then maybe it's time the sea learns about refunds." A soft laugh track in the distance. "Okay, maybe just crickets." Behind her, she hears movement. The villagers, silent, wide-eyed, have crept out of the shadows. For the first time, they're watching the ritual, not hiding from it. Old men clutching lanterns, women covering their mouths, children peeking between their fingers. No songs, no cheers, just awe. The Bodemus turns toward them, voice like a storm. "You made this pact!" An elder steps forward, his voice trembles. "Long ago, but we were afraid." The Bodemus snarls. "Fear is a promise." "Fear is not forever," the bride interrupts. She whispers the name one more time, slowly, gently, like she's letting the ocean breathe its own truth back. The light surges from the coral pendant. The water around the Bodemus rises like a wall, then collapses inward.
For a heartbeat, the creature looks almost human again. A man in seaweed robes, crowned with shells. His expression is neither anger nor peace. It's release. Then, just like the tide, he's gone. The sea goes still. Soft silence broken only by gentle ripples. The villagers don't move at first. Centuries of fear don't just disappear like smoke. But the priestess steps forward, her eyes wet but shining. "You spoke the sea's name," she whispers. "No one has ever dared." The bride looks down at the pendant. It's cracked now, its light fading slowly, but it feels lighter in her hand, like it's done its job. "I just got tired of being told what fate should be," she says. The priestess nods. Then perhaps fate has learned to listen. The villagers surround her slowly, not with celebration, but with something older, respect, maybe even hope. The wind shifts, the air smells different, fresher. For the first time in living memory, the ocean doesn't hum with hunger. It hums with something gentler. Freedom, maybe. A little boy tugs at her dress. "Did you fight a sea monster?" he whispers. She leans down, still catching her breath. "Sort of. I argued with it." "Did you win?" She grins. "We'll find out tomorrow." A soft laugh under the night sky. The priestess raises her hands toward the sea. The tide has heard its name. The chain is broken. The villagers repeat the name softly, letting it drift out into the water like tiny paper boats. For the first time in centuries, there will be no bride next year. No offering, no fear. Just the tide, just the people, just the night. The bride stands at the edge of the shore, wet and exhausted, but somehow more alive than she's ever been. She feels the ocean brush against her ankles, not like a threat anymore, but like a thank you. "Yeah," she whispers to the waves, "you're welcome." The sea is quiet. Not just, oh, nice and peaceful quiet. It's different. For as long as anyone in the village can remember, the sea was always humming. A soft, eerie song that lived somewhere deep under the surface. Most people got used to it, like you get used to an old ceiling fan. You stop noticing it. But now, it's gone. The silence is so thick even the waves seem unsure how to move. The villagers stand at the edge of the beach, staring out at the dark horizon, as if they're waiting for the ocean to change his mind and bring the monster back. But it doesn't. The tide just rolls in and out. Calm, normal, boring even. The bride, still in her soaked wedding clothes, hair sticking to her face, sits on a smooth rock. Her hands rest in her lap, the broken coral pendant lying quietly in her palm. It doesn't glow anymore, just looks like a piece of the reef, fragile, ordinary. She's tired, the kind of tired that makes your bones hum. But under the exhaustion is something else. Relief. The air feels lighter, like the island just exhaled after holding its breath for centuries. The priestess approaches slowly, her bare feet whispering against the sand. She's wrapped in a simple shawl, hair loose, eyes tired but warm. "You changed the tide," the priestess said softly. The bride gives a half smile. "Yeah, no big deal. Just had a casual argument with an ancient sea monster." The priestess chuckles under her breath. A small sound, but it feels like the island hasn't heard laughter like that in a long time. "Do you hear it?" the priestess asks. The bride tilts her head. Hear what? The silence. She listens, really listens. No hum, no whispers under the waves, just the wind and the soft lapping of water against the shore. It's strange, unsettling, but also beautiful. It's peaceful, the bride says. It's what the sea sounded like before the bargain. The villagers slowly begin to disperse. Old men help each other back up the path. Children cling to their mothers. No one speaks loudly. The quiet is still too new, too fragile. Like if they raise their voices, the monster might come back. The bride stays by the water.
A little boy, the same one who had asked if she had fought a monster, runs down from the huts, carrying a small lantern that flickers like it's unsure if it wants to stay lit. He stops beside her and sits down. "Why isn't the sea singing anymore?" he asks. She glances at the horizon. "Because it doesn't have to." He frowns, not fully understanding, but liking the answer anyway. He dips his tiny toes in the water, like he's testing if it's safe now. The ocean doesn't pull him, doesn't whisper. It just swirls lazily around his feet.
He giggles, a bright, small sound. The first child's laugh the tide has heard without taking anything in return. The priestess watches them, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Do you know," she says quietly, "when I was your age, the beach was always full of people at night. There was music and dancing and stories. But when the monster came, we forgot how to live here. We only came to the sea to give it what it wanted." The boy leans closer to the bride. "So now we can dance again?" The bride ruffles his hair gently. "Yeah, I think you can." Soft drum sounds begin in the distance, hesitant, like the villagers are testing the sound against the silence. The bride looks up the path and sees a small group of drummers. They're nervous. This is the first time in centuries anyone has played music at the shore without a ritual. A woman begins to hum softly, a real human song, not the ocean's. For a heartbeat, everyone freezes, like they're waiting for the Bodumas to rise up and shout, "Hey, no singing allowed." But nothing happens. The tide doesn't rise. The wind doesn't turn cold. The song continues, and slowly, like waking from a long sleep, the island begins to breathe again. The bride stands, brushing sand from her dress. She walks closer to the drummers. People are gathering now, hesitant at first, then more boldly. Torches flicker to life. Someone brings coconuts. Someone else brings a drum that hasn't been played since their grandparents' time. The music grows louder, not wild or frantic, just warm, human, real. The priestess stands beside the bride. "I never thought I'd see this night." The bride tilts her head toward the water. Neither did the sea, apparently. The priestess gives her a look. "You know, you've become part of the island's story now." The bride laughs softly. "Great. Maybe they'll name a fish after me." "Or a legend," the priestess says with a smile. Soft lull of ocean waves behind music. The villagers start dancing in small circles, bare feet in the sand. Children chase each other with torchlight. Elders clap their hands softly, like remembering an old rhythm they thought was lost. The bride moves toward the water one last time. She kneels at the edge and places the cracked coral pendant into the shallow tide. It sinks slowly, resting against the sand. A gift returned. The sea doesn't fight it, doesn't claim her. It just accepts. "Thank you," she whispers. The water laps against her hands, warm, peaceful, like a quiet nod. Behind her, the drumming grows richer, steadier. The island is alive again, not as a place bound by fear, but as a place that chose to remember joy. The priestess kneels beside her. "It will be different now," she says. "I hope so," the bride replies. The old woman looks at her, then at the ocean. "You should rest." The bride exhales slowly. "Yeah, I guess I can sleep now without hearing the sea whispering creepy things." They both laugh quietly. For the first time, it doesn't sound like a secret. It sounds like freedom. Soft night sounds, laughter and drums, fading gently. Far out on the horizon, the water glimmers in the moonlight. A wave rises, not in anger, but in farewell. A ripple, a sign that something old has finally let go. The bride watches it with a small smile. "Good night," she whispers. The island answers, not with a voice, not with a demand, but with silence. And that silence is everything. Morning comes gently. No crashing waves, no stormy skies, no strange humming beneath the surface. Just a golden sunrise spilling across the quiet lagoon.
The light touches the white sand like soft fingers. For the first time in generations, the island wakes up to ordinary. People step out of their wooden huts, blinking against the early sun like they've forgotten what it's supposed to look like, without a shadow of fear behind it. Usually, this time of year was the most dreaded. It was the season of the ritual, the sacrifice, a time when the ocean demanded. But now, the ocean is just water. The bride, still barefoot, still wrapped in a borrowed shawl that smells like smoke and sea, sits outside her hut. She hasn't really slept, but she feels lighter, like the island's weight isn't sitting on her chest anymore. She watches the villagers move around with the awkward energy of people who don't know what to do with their hands when they're not terrified. A fisherman steps carefully into his boat. Normally, the men would wait for the priestess's blessing before touching the water on this day. But now, he just rows out, slowly, as if testing whether the tide will strike him down for daring to live freely. Nothing happens. A woman carrying a basket of coconuts stops at the shoreline. She stares out at the horizon. Her mother and grandmother had both been forced to give brides to the sea. Her face is still cautious, but when the wind brushes her cheek, she smiles, just a little. The priestess walks down the sandy path, leaning on her cane. She looks different this morning, less like a guardian of ancient curses and more like someone who can just be old in peace. Her shawl flutters in the breeze as she surveys the quiet. She spots the bride sitting by the hut and joins her, lowering herself onto the sand with a sigh that sounds like relief. "You look like someone who's survived a wedding and a sea monster," the priestess says with a faint smile. "Yeah, not exactly the honeymoon I imagined." They both laugh softly. It's easy now. The laughter doesn't sound forced. The priestess gazes at the water. "You've given this island something it forgot it could have." "What's that?" the bride asks. "Choice." Soft pause, waves lapping gently. The villagers begin gathering by the shore, not because they have to, but because they want to. For centuries, this exact morning was filled with prayers, wailing, and offerings to keep the sea from taking more than it already had. But today, there's no ritual to prepare, no bride to sacrifice, no fear to pass down. Children race each other down the beach, kicking up sand. One boy throws a shell into the water just to see it splash. It's the kind of thing no one would have dared to do yesterday. A group of women begin laying mats under the palm trees. Someone starts roasting breadfruit. The smell drifts through the air like a promise of a new beginning. The bride watches all this unfold, and a strange feeling swells in her chest. Pride, maybe, or relief, or just the quiet joy of seeing people breathe without looking over their shoulders. The priestess follows her gaze. "The sea will remember this," she says. "Good, so will we." The old woman nods. "This story will be told long after you and I are gone. The night the ocean listened to a bride instead of taking her." The bride snorts softly. "I hope they tell it right. No weird extra sea dragons or magic glowing swords." "Oh, trust me," the priestess says with a grin. "Legends never stay simple." They both laugh again, soft and tired but content. Soft gull sounds overhead. The fisherman returns from the water with a boat full of fresh catch, silver fish glittering in the morning sun. Usually, he'd leave part of the catch at the altar as an offering, but the altar stands empty now, slowly being reclaimed by vines. He unloads the fish and hands one to the little boy from the night before. "Here," he says, "for breakfast." The boy beams like he's holding a treasure. His laughter rings out over the quiet beach. It's such a small thing, but small things build new worlds. The bride rises to her feet, brushing sand off her legs. She walks toward the water's edge.
The sea greets her with a soft, playful lap around her ankles. No whispers, no cold pull, just the gentle rhythm of something alive, but not angry anymore. "You're quiet now," she murmurs. "I like it." The tide rolls in, then out again, like an answer. The priestess stands behind her.
"You know," she says softly, "this island will need new traditions now." The bride glances back. "Good. I'm tired of the old ones." "Then perhaps," the old woman says, "you'll help make the new ones." The idea makes her blink. "Me? You faced the sea when everyone else was too afraid," the priestess replies. "That makes you part of its story now, whether you like it or not." The bride smiles slowly. "Well, if we're making new traditions, maybe they should include breakfast by the ocean, with coconuts, and 0 sea monsters." The priestess laughs. "That's a tradition I can support." A few villagers begin playing soft music, not as a ritual, but as a celebration. The sound drifts over the water. A young girl starts to dance barefoot in the sand, and soon others join her. It's clumsy and beautiful, like people remembering how to be free. The bride stands still for a moment, soaking it in. The sun warming her face, the sand beneath her feet, the sound of life instead of fear. For centuries, the Bodamus was the heartbeat of this place, a monster born from fear and a bargain no one dared to question. But now, the tide beats to a different rhythm, one the people choose for themselves. The priestess places a hand on the bride's shoulder. "Thank you," she says quietly. The bride looks at her. "For what?" "To remind us we're more than our fear." They stand together in silence, not the heavy silence of the old nights, but the kind that feels safe, warm, the kind of silence people can build new stories on. The bride lifts her face to the breeze. The island smells like sea salt, smoke, and the beginning of something better. The ocean shimmers under the sun, no longer a hungry god, just the sea. And for the first time, this island isn't a place people survive. It's a place where they live. Every story leaves a little echo behind, even when the monster's gone. Even when the tides are calm again, something lingers, like a faint footprint in the sand after the waves roll back. The Maldives island is breathing in a new rhythm now. Days feel different. Nights feel different. The people look out at the horizon not with dread, but with curiosity, with wonder. The bride walks along the beach barefoot. The sand is cool under her feet, and the moon paints a soft silver road across the water. She hasn't worn the bridal cloth again. She doesn't need to. Tonight, she's not a bride. She's just herself. As she walks, the quiet isn't heavy anymore. It's like a lullaby. For so long, silence on this shore meant something was hiding beneath the waves, but now it's just the sound of peace. The villagers have long gone to their huts. Only the priestess sits by the last of the dying torches, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The air smells like burnt wood and salt. The bride walks up to her and sits down on the sand. "Couldn't sleep?" she asks softly. "I think my body forgot how to rest." They both watch the tide in silence for a while. The water slides in, then out again, lazy and unhurried, like a creature no longer chained to anger. The priestess breaks the quiet. "You know, when I was a girl, we didn't talk about the monster. We whispered about it, like it would hear us and drag us away." The bride turns to her. "Were you ever afraid you'd be chosen?" The old woman lets out a slow breath. "Every girl was. It was the kind of fear that lived in your bones before you even understood it, like a story written inside you. You didn't question it. You just accept it." The bride listens carefully. She's heard this kind of silence before. Not the quiet outside, but the quiet inside, people who've lived too long with fear.
But that story doesn't belong to us anymore, the priestess adds, a small smile curling on her lips. It belongs to the sea now. Or maybe to you. The bride chuckles softly. I don't want to belong to a story. You don't, but stories will always belong to you. Down the beach, a group of children run out of their huts with lanterns. They're laughing, really laughing. One of them is the boy who asked her about the monster that night. He's carrying a tiny wooden boat, no bigger than his hand. They gather at the edge of the water, their voices a soft jumble of excitement and whispers. The bride and priestess watch from the shadows as the kids set their little boat onto the tide. "Let's send it far," one of them says. "To the place where the sea monster went," another diggles. The tiny boat bobs on the water and begins its small adventure into the dark, gentle ocean. No one stops them. No adult yells, "Don't play by the water at night," because the fear is gone. The bride's chest warms. This is the echo she wanted to leave. The priestess watches her carefully. Do you ever wonder what it felt like for the other brides, the ones before you? The question hangs in the air, soft but heavy. The bride looks down at the sand. "I do," she whispers. "I think about their faces, the ones who walked into the sea and never came back." "They walked," she says softly, "so you could stand." The bride's throat tightens, but it's not from sadness. It's from the weight of knowing that she's part of something bigger now. A chain that was broken, yes, but also a memory that will be carried. She whispers almost to herself, "I hope they found peace down there." The priestess nods slowly. Maybe the silence we hear now is their answer. The ocean swells, comes in. The children's lantern boat is now a small golden dot floating in the dark. It doesn't sink. It doesn't get pulled down. It drifts, as if the sea is gently carrying their laughter somewhere far away. The bride watches the water. You think the sea will ever speak again? Oh, it will, the priestess says, but next time it won't be a demand. It'll be a story, maybe even a song. The bride tilts her head. A friendly sea song. That'll be new. They both laugh softly, the kind of laugh people only have when the darkness doesn't scare them anymore. She leans back on her hands and looks up at the stars. They shine brighter now, or maybe she's just finally looking. For centuries, the sea was the center of everything here. It was worshipped, feared, obeyed, but now it's just the sea. The stars above it are older, the land beneath it is stronger, and the people, they're free to make their own stories. The priestess stands slowly, brushing sand from her shawl. I think it's time we give the sea a new name. The bride raises an eyebrow. Like Bob? The old woman bursts out laughing, an actual laugh, full and bright. Maybe not Bob. They share that moment, light and ridiculous and perfect. Maybe, the priestess continues, we'll name it after something kind, something that belongs to us, not our fear. The bride smiles. Yeah, something soft, something that sounds like home, a soft wave against the shore. The priestess starts walking back towards the village. The bride stays behind, letting the sea breeze brush through her hair. The lantern boat is almost disappeared now, just a flicker in the night. She whispers into the wind, not a prayer, not a demand, just a simple promise. I'll remember. And in the soft lap of the tide, it almost feels like the sea whispers back, so will I. The waves roll in gently, wrapping around her ankles. No pull, no whispers from the deep, just a quiet, living thing that has finally learned to let go. She closes her eyes, letting the sound wash over her like a lullaby. Behind her, the drums have gone quiet, the village sleeps, and for the first time in centuries, the island sleeps without fear. The tide moves in, the tide moves out,